Come on in. I'm Jim Conaway. Come into my studio. I'm 92 years old. I'm an artist in Minneapolis. I've been in this studio for a little over 35 years. The sunlight, it controls when I get here. It's around 9 o'clock in the morning. As you can see, nice big windows. You have just wonderful lighting in here. I love the white walls where I hang things that are done or things that are in progress. The gallery part of it just happened. It wasn't part of a plan. I particularly like this wall. We do a lot of traveling, and a good idea was to collect some things for this wall. This is my work spot over here. When I moved into this building and had this studio, I was making much larger paintings. I couldn't have a small easel. I need to have something bigger. So I put 2x4s up, and then I'm able to do that and pick it up. I put a place here for supplies, and everything else here is within my reach, just, here and there. My paint table has grown. It started off about this big, and then I found a bigger table, and I needed a place with some mediums that I mix with the oil and turpentine, and it's built up with a lot of stuff. It's just got a lot of colors on it, and empty tubes and full tubes, and I used to clean the palette every night before I left. Well, I haven't cleaned the palette in 20 years. A friend of mine came in here one day and he said, "Let me do your portrait." I said, "Well, if you'll let me do yours." He did a portrait of me and I did a portrait of him. This is the one he did of me. I don't know what he did with mine. Maybe he has it. Most of the time I'm up here working, and then I say, I better just go see what this looks like. So then I decide, okay, what I want to do, and can make up or mix up a color, and then go up there with a bigger brush than this, and just really and then I go back here and think, well, I don't like that. I thought it was going to work, but it's not. So I take a rag, dip it in turpentine, and wipe it off down here. So it's that process for 6 hours a day, until I finally finish the painting. My very first oil painting was done when I was 13 years old. It was oil on canvas. I eventually joined the Navy, and I was sent to the Mediterranean, and I just got more interested in the architecture and the painting and things like that. This past series, I was going to my bookcase and going to look for something to read, and I found my old Odyssey book, and I got it out and started looking at it and reading a little bit. It was very interesting, more interesting than I actually thought. One of the important stories is the blinding of Polyphemus. As you see, little spurts of blood up there, but I tried not to make it dramatic. But two of the crew sharpening these pieces of wood, and when Polyphemus was passed out on the rocks, then that's when they came together and blinded him. This is the beginning of the Odyssey. If this was not here, this wouldn't have been an Odyssey. They would have gone home and had a very happy life at home. Well, one of the most interesting paintings, I think, in this series is the city of Troy. They were a very wealthy city, and when I was thinking about the city, how am I going to make it look? I just started off by making shapes, the horizon here, and what I ended up with is when it goes from darker then into lighter, and the columns, let's say these small lines like that look like columns. And we see that they melt into each other, which gives an impression of more space. And these become bigger and stronger. And I think that's what interested me in that painting, is the shadows of the sunlight and the shadows in the architecture. I've never seen a god, so I just built a lot of strange figures and kind of wound around each other, and shapes like this with an eye and a mouth that had some human qualities to them. I title it Poseidon's Family, and that's about the only thing I think would fit here. Ithaca, in my mind, is a beautiful place, and I tried to make it as beautiful as I possibly could. I heard descriptions in the book and ideas about the island, and I think that it was home, it represented home to Odysseus and his men. I suppose similarity between these white areas and this area is probably the same technique and the same idea of building space, bringing something forward, pushing something back. And even reflections, that was just probably an accidental thing, but I think it works. The story of their returning home, that's been the war stories ever since the Trojan War. I was hoping that the figures would show no fear, making it through all the battles. It's a happy story. I really had a lot of fun with this, and it was interesting because I've never done anything quite like this. Working with personalities, I liked the darker, somber colors of two paintings, how that's going to affect the personality of the whole story. So I've been thinking, what about the Iliad?